When I think back on all the fears when I was pregnant, all of them dismissed except for one. The only test the state mandated was genetic. Looking for that extra chromosome.
Hello, and welcome to the If We Knew Then podcast. I'm Stephen Sachs.
And I'm Lori Sachs. And today we are celebrating World Down Syndrome Day.
In this episode, we're joined by Eric Rubenstein.
We've had Eric on our podcast a few times, but this time he is joining us with his research group. We were invited to be a part of their monthly meeting. This is one of those If We Knew Then moments because talking to the group of researchers, if we would have had this conversation 13 years ago when Liam was born, I think it would have obliterated a lot of the fears that were instilled in us.
In this episode's show notes, we have two important links. The first link is information to a webinar that the co-researchers are doing with experts on March 21st from 12 p.m. to 1:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And the other link is for the co-researcher survey so that they can get information from the community.
So welcome Eric Rubenstein and friends.
Stephen and Lori are hosts of the If We Knew Then podcast about Down syndrome. It's about advocacy and parenting that shares different conversations about support, therapies, and different things for the Down syndrome community. And they just celebrated their 133rd episode, I believe. So they've been doing this for a while. Congratulations. We're really, really happy to have you both here, and we'll turn it over to you. You can maybe introduce yourselves, and we can go around and introduce ourselves too.
Yeah, I'm Stephen Sachs and Lori
I'm
Sachs.
Lori Sachs.
And we have a son who just turned 13 last week, a week ago today, Liam. And we really knew nothing about Down syndrome prior to Liam being born. And so as soon as we got a diagnosis for Liam about 10 days after he was born, we tried to gather as much information as we could. And a lot of the information was not that great. It wasn't uplifting. There wasn't a lot of uplifting.
I think that's being kind. I don't think that there was anything of hope. The tone that we experienced in the NICU, the shift of tone, just didn't really coincide at all with what we were witnessing our son, who was born at 30 weeks, what he was demonstrating before our eyes as far as, you know, his body developing, his just not needing oxygen, just different strength that he had. It wasn't matching the shift in tone from like the nurses and doctors or the information that we were being given.
Yeah, if I had to just go by the information I was searching for and gathering and people were giving me, I wouldn't have envisioned a group of co-researchers like yourselves that are moving, you know, in a direction like you are. I wouldn't have imagined my son where he is now. So we've said it several times on the podcast that we're seeing great leaps and bounds with people in our community, and the chromosome hasn't changed. It's the way we're letting people with Down syndrome be their
We're
best.
not doing it. It's the way, it's the changes in society, I think. I think
yes.
it's the changes in society and the fact that, you know, I'm not a big social media person, but I believe that social media has played a really great part in breaking down the barriers because there's different images and there's different stories that can be brought to light. You know, sitting in IEPs with my son fighting for his education. When we first started, it was, you know, we had to have a lawyer the whole time, but we had to have a lawyer, and it was more me reaching beyond the barriers that were being set for him without any grounds. There was no, it's like, to me, they were putting stuff on my son that there's nothing, they couldn't prove it. They were just saying these things, and I was supposed to, and unfortunately a lot of parents do, I was supposed to just, you know, own them and take that baton and carry it. And when I first set out, it was more coming from hope and knowing and seeing my son and how hard he worked and, you know, his milestones and the challenges he overcame, and just knowing that I was going to focus on his ability. Now, I can sit in an IEP and I can say, I want an inclusive classroom for my child. I want him to access the curriculum. I want him to, if he chooses to go to college, to have that foundation beneath him. And here are some of the other people who have gone before him that have done it. And still, when I have those references, it still catches people off guard. They'll be like, "Oh, I didn't know that." But now it's like the proof is in the pudding. You can't
like right
deny.
here.
Yeah, like this. I want a photo of this panel. I want a photo of this panel because it's, for me, just when I see different message boards and parents that are only getting that initial message that we got, I want them to see and to know what I believe is the real story, what is the narrative, not what's really unfoundedly being passed down.
Yeah, so we're really grateful to be here
I'm
today.
so happy to be here and see all of you guys.
Yeah, of course. We're really glad to have you. And let's go around and everyone can introduce themselves really quickly. We have a mix of our co-researchers and different research assistants on the team. So I can start. My name is Ashley. I'm a project coordinator, just assisting the co-research team since the beginning, since July we've been meeting. I'm going to go around and have all of our co-researchers first introduce themselves, maybe say what state you live in. So maybe we'll start with Kaylee.
Hi, I'm Kaylee, but my friends and family calls me KK, and I live in Manhattan Beach, California.
I'm Benjamin. I live in California in Irvine, Orange County.
I'm Goose Augusta. I'm from Maryland.
Hi, I'm Eden Rapp. I'm from California. I'm in school in Wisconsin.
I'm Alexis. I live in Northborough, Massachusetts.
And last but not least, Kata, who I think you've already met.
Yep, I'm Kata, and I'm from Madison, Wisconsin.
I'm Ryan. I'm a research assistant on the co-researcher team. I am getting a master's of public health at Boston University.
Hi, everyone. I've been a research assistant working with Eric since February of 2021. And I went to BU for undergrad, so I'm kind of in between undergrad and grad school right now.
I'm Anna Maria. I'm a graduate student at the School of Public Health, and I started working with Eric in, I think, the summer of 2021, and Alexis as well, starting a co-researcher training program with the Special Olympics of Massachusetts.
I'm Karen, and I'm a research fellow. I just completed my MPH in December, and I've been with Eric since October.
I'm Krisha. I also graduated from BU undergrad last year, so I'm also in between undergrad and grad school, and I think I've been with Eric since like November 2020 now. It's been a very long time.
And so, yeah, I'm here too, Eric Rubenstein. I've been on the podcast before. Now I have all the people that actually do my work here. So I'll just sit down and sit back and let them talk about all the work that I take credit for that they do. You'll see really how the sausage is made here, where I just sit and talk on podcasts and they do all the hard work.
Well, when we first talked to you, Eric, you had the concept of this and you guys had met maybe one time. But I don't even think at that point you had come up with what your mission was going to be or what your focus was going to be. And I think we talked about that it was going to be maybe focusing on mental health. Is that kind of where you're at now?
So in our first or second meeting, the group decided what they were interested in, and mental health jumped to the front. Does anyone want to share why mental health was important and a topic that you wanted to explore as part of the co-research team? Kaylee, how about you? Why was mental health important? I think that may have been something you brought up.
Yeah. Personally, it doesn't affect me, but when I'm with my friends, sometimes they feel like lonely or depressed. So sometimes we talk about things together. So that means a lot to me. Because I don't want them to be alone. This is scary for a lot of people like that. Especially in our ward that we have, that's small or big, whatever it is.
I thought that was very interesting that you guys chose that because, one of the things I think, at least from a parent's point of view, that we're told about maybe one of the positive things of someone with Down syndrome is that, wow, they're always happy.
Well, I don't think any stereotype is positive.
No,
I
right.
think it's like it's confining. I think the challenge with that is we experience, if Liam has a challenge in school or a transition, not at his new school. His new school is just so inclusive and intuitive, but he would just be held to this bar of right or wrong, which very few children in elementary school are held to such a high bar as Liam was. Like, kids get away with being kids. And it was never considered that Liam might have been having a bad day. Somebody might have hurt his feelings. He might have gotten in a fight with his sister. He might feel overwhelmed by his, workload. None of that was ever taken into consideration. It was just right or wrong, good or bad. And so I love the fact of mental health coming into the conversation, because I feel like after the pandemic, there was such a spotlight put on everyone's mental health in the world. And I don't believe that my son was given the same opportunity to heal from the pandemic, to have those expressions of other emotions. And so I love that this is something that you're exploring and researching.
Since we're on a podcast, do you want to read your comment?
I think mental health is important because I learned from being on the team that 80% of people with Down syndrome are likely to get Alzheimer's, and I would like to help calm that down from this group.
Great job, Eden. Thank you. So they raised a good point about the pandemic, and sort of a thing that we're doing, we're working on this survey to learn about mental health, is strategies and ways to help your mental health. What did you all learn, or hobbies or activities during the pandemic that you still use to maintain some good mental health? Kata, I know you have a ton of stuff that you do that keeps you grounded.
Yes, I always like to put jigsaw puzzles together to help calm me down, and also coloring is a part of that as well, because I also like to color. I also like to do word searches and crossword puzzles, and also knit, and listening to music and talking to people who I feel really close with.
Can I also add to that what I did during COVID? It was a really hard time for me, and I like staying inside no matter what. I'm an indoors and outdoors kind of person. So with me, I watch movies that calms me down, or with my family, we cook together, or we do like something really fun, like dancing. Like in the middle of COVID, my sister made it really fun when we were cleaning the house. And I call it's like my Disneyland right here. Because with the people that you love, that's all about. And some people go separated, but with us, we're not. We're like really close family, and we do things together and play card games or board games, charades, anything that's really fun to keep us really excited for things. So it makes it really fun to do things with the family. And I also FaceTime a lot of my friends out of the country. Sometimes FaceTime can be like too much for everyone with big groups. But if it's a little bit or whoever it is, it makes you to feel good about themselves or ourselves, or don't have self-doubt limit you or anything, because what's the fun out of that, So that's what I do.
Do you feel the accessibility to mental health or the entitlement to express the need for support in mental health?
Like if it's readily available to them?
Yeah. Is it, like I said, my son is very young, and all the way up until this new school, mental health wasn't really something that was considered. You are all much older than Liam. So I'm wondering if that has been your experience through your life, or have you always been offered a mental health outlet? And if it isn't, and it was a shift, when that happened and how that felt?
Eden, why don't you answer this one? What, in your experience, when you go to the doctor, do they ask you about your mental health?
Not really, but I do get experience. Like, for example, one of my biggest things is I have a tendency to rock back and forth, and I don't know how that is related to mental health, but I think for all ages, whether you're young or as an adult, I think that learning how to help mental health is important because it will allow you to know what you need at the moment. For example, I'm at school, and so I have staff who check in on me to make sure that I'm okay. And they break things down for me. And they show me how I can take a break, stop, and then focus on what is truthful, what is important.
Alexis, you have a really cool job. Does that help you with your mental health? Is it being able to work and have a job?
Yes.
Do you want to tell them about what your job is?
I work in the Whalers and the Woo Sox.
And they may not know what that is in California. The Woo Sox is, what sport do they play?
It's like a Boston Red Sox farm team.
So you work for a minor league baseball team, right?
Yeah.
And what is that job? How does it make you feel having that
I feel
job?
happy. I'm so excited back to work again.
Yeah. And Kata, do you want to read your comment, Kata? We're on a podcast here.
Yeah. I also like to do lots of reading and writing because I have such good handwriting, and because I find it to be just so relaxing. I also like being inspired when looking and taking pictures of inspirational quotes, so that I can be reminded of all the positivity that it makes me feel.
So this is for you, Benjamin. So the Sox have a 13-year-old boy with Down syndrome. What would you tell your parents about being a teenager with Down syndrome? What advice would you give to them?
So my advice is that their son should control all of stress and anxiety instead of letting stress and anxiety to take over and control their son. Here's why. It's because even if that Derek Baker, the on TikTok, has ability travels, he travels because of his disability, and he is cool, and he is controlling his own stress and anxiety, and he doesn't let that to control him.
Who's that TikToker? I don't know him.
Oh, Rebecca on TikTok? Yeah, I follow him. He has a professional account, and he travels a lot at times, and he's a big fan of WWE.
Benjamin, what were some ways when you talk about not letting your stress control you as a young man? What were some ways that you expressed being overwhelmed then when you were younger?
Well, many years ago, when I was in my teenage years, there was something in my mind, like a voice in my head. It was like controlling my mental health. And since then, I do something amazing. Like I have been hanging out with my friends from elementary school, and also in gymnastics. Not just Special Olympics. There is gymnastics that I did many years ago, and I had so much fun with them, especially on your birthday.
So I have another question for the group. Who here has gone to college or is in college?
I'm in college. When I was in my early 20s, I was in this workability college for advanced transition skills. I did workability at the same time taking regular college classes at that location, and that was fun.
Kaylee, do you want to tell us about what you got out of your college experience?
Yes, of course. It was like life-changing for me. It helped me to be independent. It helped me make new friends and about budgeting and everything. I went to UCLA, so I'm alumni to that one, and to this program called Pathways. And it helps so many people like myself to learn to live independently, what it's like to live on a campus. I made other friends outside of that program, and they were so wonderful and really inclusive. It was the best for me. My mom When I graduated from there, my mom was in tears, being proud of me. She's like my biggest hero, my biggest supportive team. She's like the captain of that team, I would say. Like, I want to be like my mom some days. Because in the beginning, before college, with the school system, it didn't help a lot what my mom wanted me to get guidance from. Because I was like young and I didn't know anything about things like that. But when I went to college, my mom was so happy that I went to college. I was one of the first people with Down syndrome to get a diploma. And the only thing that didn't pass me was math, because that's not my favorite subject. But I had to take algebra to get my diploma. And my mom fight for me. She fought for me. And you know how that is for us as parents. They fight for what we believe in. And my mom doesn't stop. We show our abilities, not our disabilities. So my mom thought college would help me a lot. Since college, my goal is to move out, actually, with my best friend. And now things are growing. My mom is helping me a lot. And with college, it was like the best year of my life. I went in an early intervention program there. And I had so many friends. And my mother said this to my mom, that did you know that your daughter has, well, I don't want to say it, but they all would.
Oh.
Right in front of my mom, as if I don't exist. Like, no, my mom fights for me. And I love that for my mom. So that's what I love about my college life there, because it showed me that I can be independent, having confidence, and making friends out of it. So it's like, school system wasn't like great when I was in school, but now they're more accepting of ourselves. My brother is like one of my best friends. My family's my best friend, actually, because they do things for me. So I've always wanted to be in college since my brother graduated, my sister graduated, my older ones. I'm out of, counting myself, I'm out of the 4 kids. But I went to college and I did what I need to do. So I took theater, and this random guy in my theater group, he thought it was too late coming back to the apartment. He was living right next to me, and he offered to drive me back. And I loved that coming from him. So college was the best life for me.
Awesome. Thank you, Kaylee.
Thank you.
I was going to ask if you felt safe when you were there.
Oh, so one time I got lost and I didn't know what to do. So what I did, I went to a police officer and he escorted me back to my apartment. So I felt a lot safe. If I was like deserted on one place, that would be UCLA. They helped me a lot.
Kaylee, I remember speaking with you and your mother.
Yes.
I think it was maybe like 5 years ago. And I just did discuss with your mother about the school system. And I remember her telling me, you fight. You fight for the inclusive classroom. You fight. And you don't take what they say. And it's really, as parents, that's when another parent tells you that. I don't know, I guess it gives you permission because the rest of the world is telling you otherwise. But it was your mom saying, no, you fight. You keep him in that classroom. He can do everything that every other student can do. And I remember you had a great conversation with our daughter. Mm-hmm. And it was one of those things that just like, this meeting here, other people will see that and go, oh, okay.
Well, I say this in a film, but mothers knows best for our kids. Of course, our fathers, obviously in the family, but you gotta admit, moms do a lot of work with them. Mm-hmm. As counting with Down syndrome, it was kind of hard for my mom because she had to pay a lot of things for me, and she put me into mixed classes so I could make new friends out of it too.
Do you feel like you had that inclusive environment at the school as far as like being able to be with
all different people, or do you feel like you were segregated into the program?
So I didn't know I had a disability until my mom told me and put me into classes. But my mom doesn't see that one bit. She just knows I just make great friends. But we don't segregate it into one small group, like a pod. It's all inclusive. It's like the best environment. Like I met these really great people that's from like with me down here in Manhattan Beach, And I used to be really shy. Like now I'm not though, but then I was. So it was hard for me personally, but I didn't know what I was living with, kind of thing, if that makes sense, because I met my first best friend here on Manhattan Beach. And then in summer school, they put us in separate groups, just with special needs. It's like non-typical kind of thing together. And they were like, if I was stuck on a work or whatever it is in each subject, they helped me. They helped me write notes, because when I write slow and I can't catch up, so I had to have an aide to help me to write the notes. Even in college too.
Kata, at your school, you were like the mayor of the school. So when I lived in Madison, Kata knew every single person in town, and she knew them all from college. She must have been the queen of the college ball.
Yes, I was. I made so many friends when I was in college, and of all my college friends who I'm good friends with, the one college friend that I enjoy having as a friend a whole lot is the person that I'm living with. So there's that, and as Eric said, it is true, because I do know a lot of people where I went to college, and I mean, I'm not the queen of the ball, but whenever I see someone, I would come up to them and say, "Hi, I do remember me? I'm Keita," and then they'd be like, "Oh yeah, hi Keita." So that's why I'm so well known, and I still know so many people.
As for me, then we actually go to college, but it just a temporary college we went to. But I think the same thing as in case said earlier. But we're getting on my money management, paying the bills and the rents from the apartment, and in case you don't know that the reason why I got laid off my job is because some students needs to work, and because Bon Appetit is like low in tax cuts, so I laid off of work. And so right now I'm planning to become a gourmet chef once I get in a job like Chipotle and some other things. And my plan is to get back into actual college, like Boston College, Boston University, something like that. So that is what I'm planning to go back to school. And I was just thinking that many of other adults with disabilities, like autism, learning disability, something like that, they would be interested in independent living. And my plan is to help other people's lives. Most adults with Down syndrome, they can like have a business of their own, family, and so I want to bring that up.
We believe the same thing, Benjamin. But how do you all feel as far as the accessibility to those things that you want for your life, and also the reception that you receive in pursuing those things? Like, do you feel, you had mentioned about going back to work at Chipotle. Do you feel like when you go in and you fill out an application, is that something that I'm just going to go in and fill out an application? Or do you feel like there's something else, some other challenge that you have to meet?
Well, I applied online. The application is online. And I went for the interview. So they will have to check back in with them. And they will let me know if I did get a job. Because if I did, I'll just go step by step,
Awesome, Benjamin. Goose, why don't you tell us about your job? How do you fit in with your job? Do you get along with your employees? You've been there a really long time, right?
Yes.
What job do you do?
I'm a bagger.
At what store?
I play a giant.
How do you get along with your coworkers?
I do okay.
And then what about the other job that you had in the summer? You want to tell everyone what you did in the summer?
Oh yeah, Corvicious, cooking with you and Dusty.
Yeah, we had Goose in person this past summer, and hopefully this summer too as our intern. So she works at Boston University in the summers.
Hmm.
I like that work related too. So I started in 2018 to this time called Entertainment Industry Foundation. And in the beginning, I haven't met my boss because she was up in New York because we have two headquarters. And when I was up there, they told me, oh my gosh, I love her personality. I love her smile and everything she does. And then after that, everyone at EIF is like so welcoming and so inclusive with everything. And I even had a best friend at work. And now we get along super great with each other. I've been working with them for almost 5 years since April. And it's my longest job with them. And I'm their front desk administrator and receptionist. I just love the environment they gave to me when I came into the job process and getting the interview. That was wonderful and it was amazing. I was like, yeah, this is made for me right here. I love it.
I have a question because, I think the last time we spoke with you and Kata, it was a light bulb moment because I remember asking about the stereotypes and metaphors that people will put on you. And I remember, Kata, I believe you said that you just don't notice them. And for me, it was a real insight because I feel like as a parent, I notice every discrimination against my son. I notice every judgment. I notice it all. I see it all. But for Liam, he doesn't really pay, unless it's like an outwardly someone just being unkind, he doesn't pay attention to that stuff. That really shifted my focus. If it doesn't bother Liam, then it shouldn't bother me. It's not really his problem if people have a limited point of view. And my question to you guys, do you feel supported in your abilities? Do you feel not underestimated when you're doing a job? Maybe a Goose.
Yeah, Goose, do you feel supported?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, so this summer, well, the summer's a long time ago now, but Goose gave a final presentation to the whole school, and we had about 35 people come out to hear you talk and support you for your presentation.
Right.
And there was cake, but they were not bribed with cake. They came to see Goose and then they got cake. It wasn't a bribe.
Right.
How about you, Alexis? Do you feel supported? That's a nod, yes.
I have been supported parents. I also have support from DABS, which is Development Ability Behavioral Services. Is a program where adults with Down syndrome goes out to look for jobs and volunteer. Like for me, I volunteer at the SCOC, and I've been doing that for like 5 years since it first started. So I also get support from them and include my parents too, because my parents are in conservator because they are my guardians ever since the beginning, 30 years ago. So basically, I have support.
That's great, Benjamin. Now, I'm curious. We had a conversation earlier, and I know some people on our team might have questions for you, Stephen and Lori. Does anyone have a question they want to ask them? I think Kaylee mentioned she's got a question.
I do, actually. What advice do you want to give to other people who want to start a podcast for them? Like say myself, for example. What do you say to them?
Podcasting is a great way to share information. It's kind of going back, I've said it so many times, going back to kind of old school radio where you can just dial in your specific interest and you can find information. Probably the hardest thing as a new podcaster is that there's literally millions of podcasts. So how can you get your podcast heard? First, it kind of starts with, because producing a podcast is easy enough that you can talk into a phone and just get it done. But then at that point, how do you get your voice heard? And it's kind of a common thread that we work on as parents. How do we have Liam have his voice heard, right? Well, it starts small. It starts with kind of word of mouth, and it builds. And I always think, even if someone's not listening to your podcast right away, you're building and categorizing like a library of information or a library of episodes that you're putting together to be listened to whenever. It could be in years to come when someone comes upon your podcast and sees 200 episodes of you giving out your information or telling your story, and then they have this novel to read.
Mine's simpler, and it's just that I think everybody has their story, and I think everybody's story is very important, and I think that we learn from each other and we teach each other at the same time. And if, you know, in your heart, you're like, I want to do a podcast, and that's the way you tell your story, then you do it and you put it out there, and you just keep putting it out there. And, you know, like he said, you don't know, like I always think of Hamilton. You know, like Alexander Hamilton, he had no idea that Lin-Manuel was going to come along so far after and retell the story. And I think that instead of limiting what you consider success, I think you just put your story out there, whatever information it is, and you never know what's going to build on that. You don't know what you're going to change. You don't know who you're going to reach. And it's just the beauty of sharing your story, I think is really important. When Liam was born, if I would have come across a podcast made by you, Kaylee, speaking and telling your story and your accomplishments and your mom's fight for your education, that you went to college and all of that, would have gone against every single thing I was told. It shoots down about 15 of the things they told me my son would never do. And here's someone doing it. So someone's wrong, and it's not the person who's on the same path as my son.
We'll look back on this moment when Kaylee wins the first Grammy for podcasting.
That's right. I'm actually learning in the red with the podcast. Well, my major goal is actually to have my own talk show. So I thought maybe a podcast would help me to get there. So I'm hoping to make that happen.
Kata was talking about that too. Maybe you and Kata could join together. That would be a dynamic show.
You can host it on your podcast network. You'll start a Down Syndrome Podcast Network, and then they can be your show.
I had a question for the researchers, and that is, what brought you to Eric? What was it that inspired your desire to be a part of this research and the Down syndrome community? Emily, or?
I guess I can go. I studied biology in college and picked up a minor in public health. And it was such an eye-opening experience. In one of my first public health classes, I had a professor talk about disabilities and, you know, how that relates to our health and the kinds of healthcare that we receive, like from that angle. I have a parent with a disability, so I've grown up having to help like advocate for him, especially in times where he's sick or hospitalized. And it is such a fight just for basic healthcare, you know, even from the specialist who specialized in his spinal cord injury. So my professor sent me Eric's email and we got in touch, and I was really excited to hop on a project, you know, about disability and health, and bringing in the advocacy part of it as well.
Thank you, Emily.
So I got into touch with Eric, and when I was interviewing for this position, I remember talking to Eric and Ashley, and they were so passionate about Down syndrome research in the community. It's like, it's infectious. You know, I know it fired me up to really be a part of this team, and now working with everyone has been such a great and rewarding experience. And I'm excited for all the research we're going to do to come out and add to the literature of the Down syndrome community.
I also want to add that I pay everyone.
Yeah, that's right. We discussed that last time. That's right.
It's a moral thing, but it's a good motivator too, is when everybody gets paid.
Well, I remember the first time that we heard Eric, and I understand that inspiring, because I just, we still have to have a conversation about ableism, Eric. I just remember some of the words that I heard come out of his mouth. It was the first time that I had ever heard, and we've spoken to quite a few professionals, but it was the first time that we'd ever heard some of the language and topics that he spoke about in such an equal and inclusive manner. He's very inspirational.
I remember after Eric started talking at the T21 conference, I mean, Lori and I looked at each other.
We got to get him.
Oh my
gosh. We got to talk to him. We have to
this
talk to
guy,
him.
Like,
it was great. It was
fantastic.
just about, I mean, I think it was the first time that we heard anyone mention sex
Yeah.
and equality and inclusion. It's like no one does that. Like there's a certain lack of equality. Like we're equal, oh, not that equal. Do you know? We'll talk about things, not those things. And that was behind my. Do you feel supported? Because I feel like there's still a lot of work that needs to be done, and I feel like society has this vision of what they feel is equal compared to what is actually equal. Because as parents, we had to beg for everything for our son as far as education. And we were like told, and I was actually told, you should be thankful. And I was like, excuse me? But some more. Anna Marie, Karen, you were muted before, Karen, when you tried to talk.
Yes. So I actually joined a little bit later, October of last year, but I saw a job posting for the co-researcher team, and it was the first time I had ever seen research of that sort, especially so inclusive. So I actually emailed him and I was like, is there any way I can be of help? And then he ended up finding a spot for me. It's really, really inspiring work, and I hope that more researchers do more of it.
And Karen, do you maybe want to give a plug for our webinar coming up in March?
Well, yes, we are doing a webinar on World Down Syndrome Day, which is March 21st. We got funding from the T21RS, and we have 4 co-researcher teams from all different places presenting their work. We have a panel discussion with Eric and a few other PIs. And then I don't know if you've ever heard of Mallory Sir. She's the program manager of Children and Youth with Special Healthcare Needs. She is our keynote speaker, and she'll be ending the talk talking about ableism actually in public health.
Can any co-researchers plug our survey that we have?
So basically, we have the survey to help people to grow and to be more independent, and it can help with your mental health. So the survey on mental health is important because it allows the researchers to do their work effectively. So they will know how to better help people like me who have Down syndrome. So I recommend you take the survey so that you can help us to grow and also help the researchers with their work. Eric and Ashley are the ones that take that data from the researchers to say, okay, so this is what we can help people with Down syndrome to do. And so that's why the survey is important, and I recommend it. And it's really helpful and inspiring.
Thank you, Eden. And Eric, is it on your website or no?
There will be a link to it from our website. It's for adults with Down syndrome 18 and older, but we encourage caregivers to help their loved ones fill it out. There's nothing against the rules for that. We're just sticking to adults for this one because healthcare is very different for adults and kids. So maybe the next one we do, if the co-researcher are interested, we'll look at mental health in the schools.
Well, then go ahead and plug your website, Eric.
So it's sites.bu.edu/Rubenstein, RUBENSTEIN.
So if you are listening to this podcast, just go down the show notes and click on the link and do the survey. How long does the survey take?
Ryan, how long does it take?
It's 22 questions. It should not take more than 20 minutes.
Wonderful. We want to thank you all for joining us today. It was so fantastic for you to let us in on your group. We can't wait to check in with you again sometime.
Thank you for the work you're doing, and thank you for this moment and the lives that you're changing. We appreciate it.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great
Thanks, everyone.
night.
Bye.
Good night. Bye.
Everyone, have a good night.
Bye.
Please follow us on Twitter at If We Knew Then Pod, and you can drop us a line on our Facebook page at If We Knew Then Pod, or visit our website, ifweknewthen.com, to send us an email with questions and comments. And you can join our mailing list there and get alerts of future podcast episodes. All these links will be added to this episode's show notes. Thank you again, and we look forward to you joining us on the next episode of If We Knew Then.